Commander Tak stood perfectly still on the bridge of the Harmony asterisk. His four eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep worry among his species. The large viewing screen showed 5 humans walking toward the docking bay of his research vessel. "Are all systems ready for our first human guests?" Tak asked, his voice flat and calm. "Yes, Commander. All scans active. Medical team on standby," replied Officer Sung from his station. The Galactic Union had only recently discovered Earth. After years of careful watching, they had finally invited humans to join them. Commander Tak's ship was the first to welcome human representatives on board. "Remember," Tak told his crew, "humans are unpredictable. Stay alert for any signs of danger." The airlock doors slid open. 5 humans walked in, led by a man named Jin. He bowed slightly to the aliens. "Thank you for welcoming us to your ship," Jin said with a smile. "This is a historic moment for Earth." Tak moved forward, his long, thin arms held tight against his body in the formal greeting position. "Welcome aboard the research vessel Harmony asterisk. We are pleased to begin formal relations with your species." The tour of the ship began smoothly. Jin and his team followed Commander Tak through the clean white hallways. The aliens showed them the engine room, the science labs, and the bridge. Everything was going well until they reached the recreation area. "This is where crew members improve their efficiency through structured activity," Tak explained, showing a room filled with strange machines. Jin looked at the odd equipment. One device seemed to spin crew members upside down while flashing lights at them. Another appeared to submerge them in bubbling green liquid. "And what is that one for?" Jin asked, pointing to a machine that stretched aliens into unusual shapes. "That is the tension releaser," Tak said. "It stretches the muscle fibers to optimal length." Jin tried to keep a straight face, but the image of serious aliens being pulled like taffy was too much. A small chuckle escaped his lips. Tak froze. The sound was unfamiliar and alarming. Jin tried to stop himself, but now he was picturing the aliens bouncing around in the bubbling green tub. The chuckle grew into a laugh. "Medical emergency," Tak shouted into his communication device. "The human is malfunctioning." Jin's laughter grew stronger at Tak's reaction. He doubled over, tears forming in his eyes. The ship's alarms began to blare. Red lights flashed along the corridors. The other humans looked at each other in confusion. Dr. Huan rushed in with a medical team. They carried strange devices and scanner wands. "What's happening to him?" Dr. Huan demanded, scanning Jin with a humming device. "He began making these sounds and leaking from his eyes," Tak reported. "His breathing pattern became irregular. I believe his respiratory system is failing." Jin tried to explain, but every time he looked at the worried aliens, he laughed harder. The other humans began to understand what was happening. "He's not malfunctioning," explained one of Jin's teammates. "This is called laughter. It's normal." "Normal?" Dr. Huan looked horrified. "This interrupted breathing and body spasm is normal. It happens when we find something funny," the teammate tried to explain. "Funny." Commander Tak repeated the unfamiliar word. His skin changed from blue to a confused purple. Jin finally managed to control himself. "I'm sorry," he said, wiping his eyes. "It's a human response to something unexpected or amusing." Dr. Huan was rapidly taking notes. "The human respiratory system temporarily shuts down for amusement. This is highly inefficient and dangerous." "It's not dangerous," Jin assured them. "It actually makes us feel good." The aliens looked at each other in shock. Their species had evolved beyond such unpredictable responses. They'd prided themselves on efficiency and control. "This will be noted in the human observation log," Commander Tak said stiffly. "We must continue our tour." As they walked away, Jin heard Dr. Huan whisper to another crew member, "Schedule emergency meetings for all departments. The humans are more unpredictable than we thought. Their bodies randomly malfunction for pleasure." Jin bit his lip to stop another laugh. This cultural exchange was going to be more interesting than anyone had expected. 3 days after the laughter incident, Security Officer Sung burst into Commander Tak's private quarters. This was against all normal protocols. Tak's 4 eyes widened in alarm. "Commander, emergency situation." Sung's voice trembled. "All 5 humans have simultaneously shut down." Tak dropped the data pad he was reviewing. "Explain immediately." "Our night cycle began 2 hours ago. I was monitoring the human quarters as ordered," Sung reported. "All 5 humans entered their rooms. Then their life signs changed dramatically. Brain activity dropped by 60%. Muscle movements ceased. They appear to be non-functional." Commander Tak rushed to the monitoring station. The screen showed thermal images of the 5 humans lying motionless on their beds. Their breathing was slow and shallow. "Are they dead?" Tak asked, his skin turning pale blue with stress. "Not exactly," replied Sung. "There are still vital signs, but greatly reduced. It's like they've entered some kind of system shutdown." Tak pressed the emergency button. "Medical team to the monitoring station immediately." Within minutes, Dr. Huan and senior xenobiologist Neri arrived. They studied the screens with growing concern. "This is most disturbing," Dr. Huan said. "Look at the brain wave patterns. They're completely abnormal." Neri moved closer to the screen. "The humans were fine during the day. Did they consume something dangerous?" "Negative," Sung replied. "Their food was carefully prepared according to their biological requirements." "Perhaps it's a virus," suggested Dr. Huan, "an aggressive one that attacks neural functions." Commander Tak tapped his long fingers against the console. "If all 5 humans are affected, it could spread to our crew. We must isolate them immediately." "Should we attempt to revive them?" asked Sung. "Our medical database has no information on this condition." The room fell silent as they considered their options. The Galactic Union's prime directive was clear: protect all sentient life. But they had no idea how to help the humans. "Wait," Neri said suddenly. "I've been studying Earth's information package." There was something. "Let me check my notes." Nari pulled out her datapad and scrolled quickly through files. "Here it is. Humans require a period of unconsciousness called sleep. It happens regularly, approximately every 16 hours. Unconsciousness. Regularly? Dr. Huan looked horrified. That can't be right. No intelligent species would evolve to become regularly unconscious. It's too dangerous. The data is clear, Nari insisted. They call it sleep, and it takes up 1/3 of their life cycle. Their brains process information during this time, and their bodies perform self-repair. 1/3 of their lives spent vulnerable and unaware. Commander Tak couldn't believe it. How did they survive as a species? They built shelters and lived in groups for protection, Neri explained. It seems to be necessary for their mental functions. Dr. Huan shook his head in disbelief. So they just shut down every day. And this is normal. According to the data, yes, confirmed Nari. The aliens stared at the screens, watching the sleeping humans with a mixture of fascination and horror. We must establish a continuous monitoring rotation, Commander Tak decided. I want at least 2 crew members observing the humans during these shutdown periods. If anything changes, alert me immediately. The next morning, Jin and the other humans entered the ship's dining area to find the entire alien crew staring at them with new unease. Good morning, Jin said cheerfully. I slept really well. Your beds are very comfortable. Commander Tak approached cautiously. You are functioning correctly now. Jin looked confused. Of course. Why wouldn't I be? You were all unconscious for several hours, Tak said. Your brain activity dropped significantly. Oh, Jin smiled in understanding. You mean sleep. That's normal for us. We do it every night. Every night. Dr. Huan repeated, recording this information. And you willingly make yourselves vulnerable this way. Jin shrugged. We don't have a choice. Without sleep, we would die. The aliens looked at each other in alarm. Another human approached with a cup in hand. "I need coffee," he mumbled. "Can't function without my morning coffee." "Another malfunction," whispered Sung to Tak. "Should we prepare the medical bay?" Jin laughed, causing several aliens to back away nervously. No. He just needs caffeine to wake up fully. It's normal. Humans," Commander Tak said quietly to his staff, "are far more fragile than we thought. These regular system shutdowns must be carefully monitored. Update the observation logs immediately." As the aliens dispersed, Jin whispered to his team, "I think we're freaking them out just by existing." A week after the sleep discovery, the Harmony faced a new challenge. The ship's outer hull needed repairs after passing through an asteroid field. Engineer Da, one of the human delegates, volunteered to help. "I have experience with spacewalks," Da told Commander Tak. "I can assist your repair team." The commander hesitated. Humans had already shown 2 alarming malfunctions: uncontrolled respiratory spasms, laughter, and regular system shutdowns. Sleep, allowing one outside the ship, seemed risky. "Your offer is appreciated," Tak said carefully, "but our repair procedures are complex." "I learn quickly," Da assured him. "Besides, my hands are smaller than your crew's. I can reach the damaged areas more easily." Dr. Huan, who had been studying humans intensely, supported the idea. "This is an opportunity to observe human physical capabilities in action." Reluctantly, Commander Tak agreed. Da was fitted with a spacesuit modified for human anatomy. The repair team, led by Chief Engineer Ra, took Da through safety protocols 3 times. "The damaged area has sharp metal edges," Ra warned. "Move very slowly. If your suit tears, return immediately." Da nodded. "Understood." 4 aliens and 1 human exited the airlock. They moved carefully along the hull using magnetic boots. The damaged section was a twisted mess of metal where a small asteroid had scraped the ship. The aliens worked methodically, cutting away damaged parts with laser tools. Da moved to a narrow section where the aliens couldn't fit. "Be careful of the sharp edge at coordinates 27B," Rai said through the radio. Da reached into the damaged area with a repair tool. He didn't notice the jagged metal until it sliced through his glove and into his hand. Pain shot up Da's arm. Blood began to float inside his glove in small red droplets. The aliens' vital sign monitors immediately registered the injury. Alarms sounded in their suits. "Human Da is damaged." Ray shouted into the radio. "Return to the ship immediately." But Da looked at the repair. It was almost complete. Just 1 more connection needed to be sealed. "I can finish this first," he said through gritted teeth. The aliens watched in horror as Da continued working despite the injury. Their monitors showed his heart rate increasing, stress hormones flooding his system, and pain signals firing across his neural network. "This is not logical," Ra said. "You are damaged. Function is impaired. Return for repairs." "Just 1 minute," Da insisted. His face was pale, but his hands remained steady as he finished the connection. "There. Done." Inside the ship, Dr. Huan was frantically reviewing human medical data. "Commander, the human system is showing something alarming. A substance called adrenaline is flooding his body. It's overriding his pain receptors." "Is it dangerous?" asked Commander Tak. "It's allowing him to function despite damage," Dr. Huan said with disbelief. "Their bodies have an emergency override system that ignores injuries." When the team returned to the airlock, medical staff rushed to examine Da. His hand was bleeding, and his heart rate was elevated. "You require immediate medical attention," Dr. Huan said. "Why did you continue working after being damaged?" Da shrugged. "The job was almost done. It was just a cut." "Just a cut," Dr. Huan repeated in disbelief. "Your protective covering was breached. Your internal fluid was escaping." "It's not that bad," Daz said as a medic wrapped his hand. I've had worse." The aliens exchanged worried looks. Later, in the command center, the senior staff gathered for an emergency meeting. "This is the most disturbing malfunction yet," Commander Tak said gravely. "Humans have an ability to ignore damage warnings." "It's called working through the pain," Nari explained. "Their historical data shows humans routinely override pain signals to complete tasks. But pain is a critical warning system," protested Dr. Huan. "It prevents further damage. Ignoring it is dangerously illogical." "According to my research," Nari continued, "this ability helped humans survive as a species. They can continue fighting or fleeing even when injured. This makes them unpredictable," Security Officer Sung noted with concern. "And potentially dangerous." Commander Tak nodded slowly. "Update the human observation protocols. They must be monitored more closely. A species that can ignore its own damage warnings is capable of unexpected actions." As the meeting ended, Tak added one final note to his log. "Human resilience exceeds all known parameters. Exercise extreme caution." 2 weeks into the human delegation's stay aboard the Harmony *, communications specialist Jun received a message from Earth. His grandfather had died. Jun sat alone in the communications room, reading the message again and again. Tears formed in his eyes and rolled down his cheeks. Officer Sung, who was monitoring the room, noticed the strange liquid coming from Jun's eyes. He immediately called Dr. Huan. "The human is leaking again," Sung reported quietly. "But there's no laughter this time." Dr. Huan hurried to the communications room. He found Jun sitting silently, tears streaming down his face. "Are you experiencing a malfunction?" Dr. Huan asked, scanning Jun with a medical device. Jun looked up, his face showing pain though he had no physical injury. "My grandfather died," he said simply. Dr. Huan checked his scanner readings. "Your vital signs are abnormal. Heart rate elevated. Stress hormones increasing. But I detect no physical damage." "I'm sad," Jun explained. "My grandfather raised me after my parents died. He was very important to me." Dr. Huan had studied human emotions, but had never seen them displayed so strongly. In his species, emotions were mild, controlled things that never interfered with logical function. "You are sad about someone who has ceased to function?" Dr. Huan asked, trying to understand. "Yes," Jun said. "We call it grief." Over the next 3 days, the aliens observed Jun with growing alarm. His behavior changed dramatically from hour to hour. Sometimes he sat silently, staring at nothing. Other times he refused to eat. Once, when Jin tried to comfort him, Jun shouted angrily and then apologized immediately after. The ship's psychological expert, Counselor Mai, called an emergency meeting with Commander Taik and the senior staff. "The human named Jun is experiencing dangerous neural instability," Mai reported. "His emotional state is fluctuating wildly. This appears to be a severe system collapse triggered by information about a family unit member ceasing to function." "Is it contagious?" Commander Tak asked with concern. "Unknown," Mai replied. "But the symptoms are alarming. The human's entire behavior pattern has changed. He shows signs of what they call anger, depression, and withdrawal. I recommend immediate quarantine." Senior xenobiologist Neri, who had been studying human culture, spoke up. "According to my research, this is a normal process called grieving. Humans form strong emotional attachments to other humans. When those connections are broken by death, they experience intense emotional reactions." "For how long?" asked Commander Tak. "It varies," Neri said. "Days, weeks, sometimes years." "Years?" Dr. Huan looked horrified. "Their neural systems remain unstable for years." Jin, who had been invited to the meeting to help explain human behavior, tried to clarify. "Grief is normal. It's how we process loss. Jun will go through several stages, but he will eventually accept his grandfather's death and continue with his life. These emotional stages They help you process information. May asked, fascinated despite her concern. In a way, yes, Jin explained. Humans need to work through strong feelings before we can move forward. But the instability of it, Commander Tak said, shaking his head. One moment calm, the next angry, then sad. How can you function with such extreme neural fluctuations? Emotions are part of what makes us human, Jin said simply. They can be difficult, but they also give our lives meaning. The aliens looked at each other in confusion. Their species had evolved to minimize emotional responses. Efficiency and logic were their guiding principles. The idea of embracing neural instability was completely foreign to them. Update the observation logs. Commander Tak ordered. Humans experience extreme emotional states as part of their normal functioning. These states can be triggered by events happening to other humans, even those not physically present. After the meeting, Counselor Mai approached Jin privately. We have medication that could stabilize your friend's neural patterns. It would eliminate these feelings. Jin smiled gently. Thank you, but that wouldn't help. Jun needs to feel his grief to heal from it. May's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. Most puzzling. You require malfunction to achieve proper function. Jin nodded. Sometimes the only way out is through. A month into the human delegation's stay, the Harmony hosted a diplomatic reception. Representatives from 3 other Galactic Union species came to meet the humans. To make their guests feel welcome, Jin suggested sharing cultural activities. We could organize some friendly games, Jin proposed during the planning meeting. It's a good way for different species to interact without language barriers. Commander Tak agreed cautiously. What kind of games do humans enjoy? Jin smiled. Simple ones. Racing, puzzle solving, tests of skill. Nothing too complicated. On the day of the reception, the main hall was transformed. Different activity stations were set up around the room. The visitors mingled politely, curious about Earth's representatives. Jin and his team set up a simple relay race. Teams would pass a baton and run a short track around the hall. Another station had puzzles that required matching shapes and colors. A third area had a game that tested hand-eye coordination. These are recreational activities from Earth, Jin explained to the gathered aliens. We invite you to join us in friendly competition. The word competition caused the alien observers to exchange concerned looks. At first, the aliens participated politely. They took turns at the puzzles, carefully examining each piece before placing it. They walked the relay course with measured steps, precisely handing the baton to the next participant. Then Engineer Da challenged an alien named Lo from the Viridian system to a race. First one around the track wins, Da said with a grin. Wins what? Asked Lo, confused. Just wins, Da explained. For fun. They lined up at the starting point. Jin counted down. 3, 2, 1, go. Da took off running, moving as fast as he could. His face showed intense concentration. Lo started moving too, but at a normal walking pace, watching Da with confusion. When Da reached the finish line, he raised his arms and shouted, yes. His face was red, and he was breathing hard. Sweat covered his forehead. The aliens in the room froze, staring at him in alarm. Science Officer Kang rushed over with a scanner. Are you malfunctioning? Your temperature is elevated. Your heart rate is far above normal parameters. Da laughed between deep breaths. I'm fine, just excited about winning. You deliberately stressed your biological systems. For no reason, Kang asked, bewildered. More concerning events unfolded as the reception continued. The humans organized a puzzle-solving contest with a time limit. As the countdown neared 0, Jin shouted encouragement to his teammate. Hurry, you can do it. Just 10 seconds left. The humans grew louder, their voices rising with excitement. Some jumped up and down. Others clapped their hands rapidly. Commander Tak pulled Dr. Huan aside. What is happening to them? They appear to be experiencing collective stress reactions. They call it getting pumped up, Dr. Huan explained, reviewing his notes on human behavior. They deliberately increased their stress hormones for this competition activity. But why? Tak asked. There is no survival benefit. No resources are being allocated based on performance. At another station, two humans were engaged in a balance contest, seeing who could stand on one leg the longest. They taunted each other playfully. "You're going down, Min," one called out. "In your dreams," Min replied with a laugh. Security Officer Sung moved closer to Commander Tak. "Sir, the humans are making threat displays at each other. Should we intervene?" "No," Jin said, overhearing them. "They're just trash-talking. It's part of the fun." "Fun," Sung repeated. "Making threats is enjoyable." "They don't mean it literally," Jin explained. "It's just to create excitement." After the reception, the alien leadership held an emergency review session. "The humans displayed very concerning behavior," Kang reported. "They deliberately raised their heart rates, perspired excessively, and made aggressive vocalizations, all for activities with no practical purpose. Their concept of games involves simulated conflict," added Counselor Mai. "They appear to enjoy the sensation of struggling against others, even members of their own species." Commander Tak nodded gravely. Most troubling of all, they introduced this behavior to other species at the reception. The Viridian delegation was particularly affected. Two of them were observed running and shouting by the end of the event. "It appears to be contagious," Dr. Huan concluded. "This human drive to compete, to expend energy unnecessarily. It could spread throughout the Galactic Union if we're not careful." Tak made a final note in the observation log. "Human recreational activities show serious design flaws. They seem programmed to waste energy and resources on meaningless competition. Most concerning of all, they appear to enjoy it." 6 weeks after the humans arrived on the Harmony *, a serious problem developed. An asteroid struck one of the ship's outer cooling systems. The damage caused a life support malfunction in the engineering section. Temperature began dropping rapidly in that area. Alarms blared throughout the ship. Red lights flashed in every corridor. "All personnel evacuate engineering section immediately," Commander Tech's voice announced over the speakers. "Temperature falling to dangerous levels. Repeat, evacuate immediately." The alien crew moved quickly and calmly toward the safety zones. Engineer Hao, one of the human delegates, was working in the affected area when the alarm sounded. He checked the control panel and saw the problem. "The main coolant valve is stuck open," he told Chief Engineer Ra. "If we don't fix it soon, the whole section will freeze. Repair teams will address it after the area is evacuated," Ray replied, heading for the exit. "Safety protocols require immediate withdrawal." I looked at the control panel again. The temperature is already down to 5 degrees Celsius. In 20 minutes, it will be below freezing. The coolant pipes could burst. "Correct," Rai said. "And repair teams will fix it after the emergency containment procedures are complete." "That will take at least 2 hours, He said. "By then, there could be major damage. I can fix this now in 5 minutes." Before Ray could stop him, He grabbed a toolkit and moved toward the coolant control room. The temperature there was already near freezing. "Stop," Ray called after him. "Your species cannot tolerate such cold." "I'll be quick," He replied, disappearing through the door. Ray immediately called Commander Tak. "Emergency. The human has entered the damaged section. Temperature there is now 1 degree Celsius and falling." In the command center, Commander Tak turned to Dr. Huan. "Can humans survive in such cold?" "Not comfortably," Dr. Huan said, checking his data. "Their optimal temperature range is much higher. Their extremities will lose function as blood flow decreases. Get him out of there." Commander Tak ordered Security Officer Sung. "Use force if necessary." Inside the frigid control room, He could see his breath in the air. His fingers were already growing numb as he worked on the frozen valve. He had to remove his gloves to reach the small control panel, and the metal felt like it was burning his skin. Security officers arrived at the sealed door. They could see Ha through a small window, working desperately on the valve mechanism. "Human Ha, you must exit immediately," one officer said through the communication system. "Your body cannot function in current conditions." Ha didn't look up. His hands were shaking from the cold, but he kept working. "Almost. Got it," he said through chattering teeth. The aliens watched through monitoring cameras as Ha's movements became slower and clumsier. His skin turned pale, then slightly blue. Still, he continued working. "This is impossible," Dr. Huan said, watching the medical readouts. "His core temperature is dropping. His fingers must be losing sensation. Yet he maintains fine motor control." After 4 minutes in the freezing room, he finally turned the valve manually and reset the control system. The emergency lights stopped flashing. The temperature began to rise slowly. When Hay emerged from the control room, medical staff rushed to treat him. His hands were red and swollen. His body shook uncontrollably. "Wrap him in thermal blankets," Dr. Huan instructed. "Raise his core temperature gradually." Later, in the medical bay, Commander Tak visited Ha. "Your actions violated safety protocols," he said sternly. "But they worked," he replied, his hands still wrapped in healing bandages. "I prevented major damage to the ship." "You risked your life unnecessarily," Tak continued. "The repair could have waited." "Not without consequences," he said. "Sometimes you have to endure discomfort to prevent bigger problems." After leaving the medical bay, Commander Tak met with Medical Director Jun to discuss the incident. "The human deliberately exposed himself to harmful conditions," Tak said. "He continued functioning despite clear physical distress. Their pain reception system appears defective," Jun concluded. "They can override safety warnings at will." "Is it bravery or malfunction?" Tak asked. "From an evolutionary standpoint, there's little difference," Jun replied. "Their willingness to endure extreme conditions may explain how such a physically fragile species has survived." Tak made a note in his log. "Humans possess an alarming ability to function in conditions that should incapacitate them. This makes their behavior unpredictable and potentially dangerous. Yet today, this same trait may have saved the ship." 2 months into the human delegation's stay aboard the Harmony Asterisk, the ship faced its greatest challenge yet. Long-range sensors detected a massive asteroid field directly in their path. The field was too large to go around, and the ship needed to pass through it to reach their next destination. Commander Tak called an emergency meeting with his senior staff and the human representatives. "Our standard protocols for asteroid navigation are insufficient," Tak explained, showing a 3-dimensional map of the field. "The density and size of these objects exceed our normal parameters." Chief Navigator Pan, a tall alien with 6 eyes positioned around his head for complete spatial awareness, nodded in agreement. "We have calculated 17 possible paths through the field. All exceed 60% risk levels." The room fell silent. No one in the Galactic Union would proceed with a mission that carried more than a 25% risk. Navigator Yun, one of the human delegates who specialized in spatial plotting, studied the map carefully. She walked around it, looking at the asteroid field from different angles. "What if we recalibrate the shield harmonics?" she suggested. "We could create a wave pattern in front of the ship to push smaller asteroids aside." The aliens stared at her in confusion. "Shields are defensive," Chief Engineer Red explained slowly, as if talking to a child. "They block incoming objects. They cannot be used to move objects." "They could if we reverse the polarity and modify the frequency," Yun said. She moved to the control panel and began inputting calculations. "See, if we create alternating pulses, it would work like this." The simulation showed the shift shields pulsing in waves, creating a force field that pushed smaller asteroids out of the way. "This is not in the standard shield operation protocols," Ray protested. Such modifications could damage the system. Sometimes you need to think outside the box, Yun replied. Outside the box, Commander Tak repeated, confused by the phrase. It means finding solutions beyond standard procedures, Jin explained. The aliens looked horrified. Chief Navigator Pan moved to block the control panel. We cannot proceed with untested modifications, he said firmly. The risk is immeasurable. We must wait for Galactic Union Command to send an approved solution. That could take weeks, Yun argued. We have supplies that need to reach Colony Station 12. Commander Tak raised his hand for silence. We will follow established protocols. The human suggestion is noted but cannot be implemented without proper testing and approval. 2 days later, the ship remained stationary at the edge of the asteroid field. Galactic Union Command had sent 3 possible solutions, but all still carried risk levels above 30%. During the night shift, when most of the crew was in rest cycle, Navigator Yun slipped into the shield control room. Only one alien technician was on duty. I'm here to run some simulations, Yun told the technician. Commander Tak authorized it. The technician, who had not yet learned to recognize individual humans well, nodded and moved aside. Yun quickly began modifying the shield systems. She adjusted frequencies, reversed power couplings, and created a new program for the shield generators. By morning, when Commander Tak arrived on the bridge, Yun was waiting with a full report. I've completed testing on the shield modifications, she announced. Risk level is down to 22%. What testing? Tak demanded. No testing was authorized. I ran simulations all night, Yun explained, showing her results. The modified shields work. We can safely navigate the asteroid field now. Chief Engineer Ray examined the modifications with growing alarm. You changed fundamental operations. You rerouted power systems. You ignored safety protocols. The alien leadership gathered in a private room to discuss the situation. The human has violated direct orders, Security Officer Sung said. But her solution appears functional, Chief Navigator Pan admitted reluctantly. This is the most dangerous human malfunction yet, Commander Tak said gravely. They change things. They do not follow established patterns. They improvise. It is chaos thinking, Ray agreed. Completely unpredictable. After much debate, they decided to test Yun's modifications on a small scale. To everyone's surprise, they worked perfectly. The ship successfully navigated the asteroid field without damage. In his private log, Commander Tak made a troubling entry. Humans possess a disturbing ability to ignore established procedures and create completely new approaches. They call this creativity and consider it valuable. While today's incident ended positively, the unpredictable nature of this trait makes humans potentially dangerous. They do not respect the wisdom of established protocols. They change things simply because they can. 3 months into the human delegation's stay aboard the Harmony Asterisk, the aliens organized a cultural exchange meal. Each species would prepare traditional foods to share with the others. The event was meant to promote understanding between different cultures. The ship's galley was divided into 4 cooking stations. The aliens carefully prepared their traditional dishes, following exact recipes handed down for generations. Their cooking was precise, with ingredients measured to the milligram. Chef Min, the culinary expert among the human delegates, was excited to cook Korean dishes from Earth. He brought special ingredients that had been stored in stasis since their arrival. What are you preparing? Asked Food Services Director Po, watching Min chop vegetables. I'm making kimchi, bulgogi, and bibimbap, Min explained. Traditional Korean foods from Earth. Po watched with interest as Min mixed spices for the marinade. The aliens' sensor implants analyzed the ingredients automatically. Warning, Po said suddenly. That red powder contains capsaicin. It's a mild toxin. Min smiled. That's just gochugaru, Korean red pepper flakes. It adds spice to the food. Spice. Po repeated, confused. You mean flavor enhancer? Sort of, Min said. It makes the food spicy, gives it heat. Po looked even more confused. Food should be at an optimal temperature for consumption. Why would you want it to be hot? Not hot in temperature, Min explained. Hot as in spicy. It creates a burning sensation when you eat it. Po's 4 eyes blinked in alarm. You deliberately add a substance that causes pain sensations. It's not exactly pain, Min said, thinking how to explain. It's more like excitement for your taste buds. The aliens gathered around Min's cooking station, watching with growing concern as he added generous amounts of gochugaru to the kimchi. Humans deliberately consume mild toxins for pleasure, Po reported to Commander Tak, who had come to observe the cultural exchange. They call the pain sensation spicy. During the meal, the aliens watched nervously as the humans eagerly ate Min's creations. Security Officer Sung had scanning devices ready to monitor their biological responses. Jin took a big bite of kimchi and smiled with satisfaction. This is delicious, Min. Nice and spicy. The aliens observed in horror as the humans continued eating the contaminated food. Their scans showed the humans experiencing physiological reactions, increased heart rates, facial flushing, and even sweating. Their eyes are watering, whispered Dr. Huan to Commander Tak. Clear signs of distress, yet they continue consuming the irritant. One brave alien, Junior Science Officer Tae, decided to try a small piece of kimchi. The moment it touched his tongue, he let out a strange high-pitched sound and quickly spat it out. "Are you trying to poison me?" he gasped, reaching for water. "I'm so sorry." Min apologized. "I should have warned you it might be too spicy for your first time." "Too spicy," Tae repeated, still drinking water frantically. "It's an assault. Why would you eat something that causes such a reaction?" The humans tried to explain, but the concept seemed impossible for the aliens to understand. "Let me get this straight," Commander Tak said slowly. "You deliberately breed plants to produce defense chemicals. Then you concentrate these chemicals in your food. You experience physical discomfort when eating them, and you consider this enjoyable. It adds excitement to eating," Jin tried to explain. "The slight burn, the heat, it makes food more interesting. More interesting than not feeling pain," Dr. Huan asked incredulously. The aliens held an emergency medical consultation on the other side of the galley. Their discussion was intense, with much gesturing toward the humans who continued happily eating the spicy food. Finally, Dr. Huan approached the human table with a medical kit. "We have prepared pain relievers and toxin neutralizers," he announced formally. "Your digestive systems are clearly in distress." Min laughed. "We don't need medicine. This is normal. Some humans eat foods much spicier than this." The aliens looked at each other in disbelief. "There are human cultures that prize extremely spicy food," Jin added. "They have contests to see who can eat the spiciest dishes. Contests to inflict maximum pain on their digestive systems." Food Services Director Po looked faint at the idea. "It's not just capsaicin," Min continued enthusiastically. "We also enjoy bitter compounds, fermented foods with high acidity, and even controlled amounts of poison in some cases, like fugu fish." The aliens backed away slowly. 4 months after the humans arrived on the Harmony *, the Galactic Union's High Council scheduled a special meeting. They needed to decide whether humans should be allowed to join the Union. Commander Tak prepared an extensive report on human behavior. The meeting took place in the ship's grand conference room. 12 council members from different alien species sat in a perfect circle. Each had received detailed files on human malfunctions, compiled by the Harmony's crew. "We will now review the findings regarding humans," announced High Counselor Vex, the eldest member. "Commander Tak, please summarize your observations." Commander Tak stood and activated a display screen. Images of humans from the past 4 months appeared. "Honored council members, My crew has documented numerous concerning behaviors in humans, Tak began. They exhibit multiple system malfunctions that make them unpredictable and potentially dangerous. He showed clips of the humans laughing, sleeping, working through injuries, experiencing emotions, competing in games, enduring cold temperatures, creating unauthorized solutions, and eating spicy food. As you can see, Tak continued, humans regularly override safety systems. They ignore pain warnings. They experience extreme emotional states. They deliberately consume substances that cause distress. They change established procedures without authorization. They shut down consciousness for hours each day. The council members watched in silence. Many looked disturbed by what they saw. Most concerning of all, Tak concluded, they seem unaware that these are malfunctions. They consider these behaviors normal and even beneficial. High Counselor Vex nodded gravely. Based on this evidence, I propose classifying humans as fundamentally defective. They should be studied but not integrated into our society. Ambassador Sue, who had been quiet throughout the meeting, asked to speak. She was the most diplomatic of the human delegates. Respected council members, she began, I understand how our behaviors might seem strange to you, but what you call malfunctions are actually adaptations that helped humans survive on Earth. The aliens looked skeptical, but allowed her to continue. Our emotions help us bond with each other and form communities, Sue explained. Our ability to ignore pain lets us escape dangerous situations even when injured. Our creativity helps us solve problems when standard solutions don't work. But these traits make you unpredictable, objected one council member. You do not follow logical patterns. Sue smiled. Life on Earth was unpredictable. We evolved to be adaptable rather than perfectly logical. And the consumption of pain-causing substances? Asked another council member. How is that beneficial? Our sense of taste evolved to help us find nutritious foods and avoid poisons, Sue explained. But once we developed cooking and agriculture, we began exploring flavors beyond simple survival needs. Spicy food may cause temporary discomfort, but it contains compounds that can preserve food and provide health benefits. What about your periodic shutdown? This sleep behavior? Asked Counselor Vex. Surely that is a dangerous design flaw. Sleep allows our brains to process information and form memories, Sue said. It helps us solve problems in new ways. Dreams can lead to creative insights. The council members whispered among themselves. Sue continued with growing confidence. What you see as malfunctions are actually what made humans successful, she said. We're not as strong as many Earth predators. We're not as fast. We don't have natural weapons like claws or fangs. But we survived because of our adaptability, our emotions, our creativity, and yes, even our ability to ignore pain when necessary. Sue walked around the room, making eye contact with each council member. The Galactic Union prides itself on diversity, on bringing together different species with unique strengths. Humans may be different from what you're used to, but our differences could bring valuable new perspectives. After Sue finished speaking, the council called for a private discussion. The humans waited anxiously outside the conference room. After 3 hours, they were called back in. High Counselor Vex stood to deliver the verdict. After careful consideration, the council has decided that humans may join the Galactic Union on a probationary basis. While your species exhibits concerning irregularities, Ambassador Sue has convinced us that these may be adaptations rather than malfunctions. Commander Tak looked surprised but accepted the decision with a respectful bow.